Hello, everyone. You think she moved on. You think she's fine. But the reason she keeps coming back, keeps checking your profile, keeps mentioning your name to her friends at 2 in the morning, has nothing to do with what you've been telling yourself. This isn't about luck. This isn't about being the right height or saying the right thing at the right time. This is about psychology. This is about what actually happens inside the mind of a woman when she encounters a man who operates differently from every other man she's ever known. And today, I'm going to break that down into 8 specific psychological reasons, the real ones, not the flattering ones, not the romanticized ones, the ones rooted in how the human brain actually works. If you're the kind of man who wants clarity over comfort, who wants to understand the game at its deepest level, so you can play it with integrity, not manipulation, then make sure you subscribe right now. Not for me, for yourself. Because if you don't consistently return to this kind of thinking, the world will quietly drag you back into confusion, back into chasing, back into becoming forgettable. Subscribe because you need reminders. You need a space that tells you the truth. Let's go. Here's what most men believe. They believe that being unforgettable is about intensity, that it's about the dramatic gesture, the perfect text, the right moment of vulnerability that cracks her open and makes her see you differently. They believe forgettability is a flaw in performance, that if she's moving on, it means you didn't do enough, weren't interesting enough, weren't enough, period. That belief is costing you everything. Here's what it really means when a woman cannot forget a man. It means he touched something structural, not emotional, structural. It means he came into contact with the deepest operating system of her psychology, the part that runs below her feelings, below her preferences, below even her own conscious awareness. And he left an imprint there that no amount of time, distraction, or replacement men can simply overwrite. Here are the 8 reasons why. The first reason she can't forget you is because you made her feel uncertain about your value, and uncertainty is the engine of obsession. This is the most misunderstood principle in all of male-female psychology. Most men think that certainty, total availability, total devotion, total transparency about how they feel is what creates attachment. And it does create something. It creates comfort. But comfort is not desire. Comfort is the thing people feel toward their childhood bedroom, toward their favorite television show, toward a glass of warm water. Comfort is gentle. Comfort is safe. Comfort does not keep someone up at night. Uncertainty does. When a woman cannot fully decode you, when she knows you care, but she doesn't know the ceiling of how much, when she knows you're attracted, but she senses you would not dismantle yourself to keep her, her brain goes to work. And the brain at work is the brain that cannot let go. That's called the Zeigarnik effect. The human mind fixates on unfinished things. It keeps open loops active far longer than closed ones. When you are a closed book, when you are fully readable, fully available, fully decoded, she closes the loop. She files you. She moves on. When you remain partially mysterious, not through games, not through cruelty, but through genuine depth and genuine self-possession, the loop stays open. And open loops don't close at night when the lights go off. The second reason is that you gave her something she doesn't know how to categorize. The brain loves categories. It loves being able to place people into predictable boxes. The sweet guy, the player, the emotionally unavailable one, the friend, the intense romantic. These categories exist because they give her nervous system a roadmap. When she knows what you are, she knows how to feel about you, how much to give, how close to let you in. But you defied categorization. You were strong, but you listened. You were direct, but not aggressive. You were emotionally present, but not emotionally needy. You had standards, but you weren't cold. You pursued her, but you weren't desperate. The moment you became unplaceable, you became unforgettable because her brain couldn't file you, and unfiled things get reviewed repeatedly. The third reason she can't forget you is because you forced her to earn your respect, and earning something creates ownership psychology. This is where most men get it fundamentally wrong. They give respect freely. They give attention freely. They give time, energy, emotional investment, all of it on credit, all of it up front, all of it before she's demonstrated anything that merits it. And what happens when something is given freely? It is valued freely, which is to say, not much. But when she had to show up for you, when she had to be interesting, not just beautiful, when she had to be honest, not just agreeable, when she had to earn a version of you that not everyone gets access to, she invested. And the psychology of investment is non-negotiable. We do not easily abandon what we have worked for. We do not casually walk away from something we put ourselves into. You made her work, not in a punishing way, not in a withholding way, but in a man of standards way. And now she carries a piece of that investment with her everywhere she goes, even when she's with someone else, even when she pretends she's over you. The fourth reason is that you were consistent in a world that taught her to expect inconsistency. Pay attention to this one because it runs deeper than most people realize. The majority of men who pursue women in today's landscape are fundamentally inconsistent. Hot and cold, present and then disappeared. Intense for 3 weeks and then suddenly distant. These men, and there are many of them, have trained women to expect volatility, to brace for the emotional floor dropping out, to hold themselves in a constant low-level state of anticipatory anxiety. And then you walked in. You said what you meant. You meant what you said. When you told her something mattered to you, it actually mattered to you consistently. When you set a boundary, the boundary held. When you showed up, you actually showed up. Not a performance of showing up, not showing up and then resenting her for it, but genuinely and calmly showing up. And her nervous system, which had been trained to flinch, slowly started to unflinch. That is the most powerful thing one human being can do for another. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't look like a movie, but it lands in a place inside her that is completely untouched by every other man who ever tried to impress her. That place doesn't forget. It can't, because it finally felt something it had been waiting to feel without knowing it was waiting. The fifth reason is that you had a world she wasn't the center of, and that is magnetic beyond almost anything else. Here is the fundamental lie that well-meaning but lost men have accepted, that to win a woman, you must make her the center of your universe. That devotion looks like obsession. That love looks like she is your entire reason for functioning. No, that is not love. That is outsourcing your identity, and women can smell it. Not because they're calculating, but because their biology is wired to detect resource and reliability. A man who has made a woman his entire world has no world. And a man with no world is a man who cannot protect, cannot provide direction, cannot be a stable force in anyone's life because he has no stable force within himself. But you had a life. You had things you cared about that existed before her, and that would continue to exist if she left. You had ambitions that woke you up in the morning before you checked your phone. You had friendships, standards, a quiet sense of who you were that didn't shift depending on her mood. She noticed. She always notices. And that life she was invited into, but was never the owner of. That life became something she thought about, something she missed. Something that, when she's lying next to someone who made her his entire personality, she compares involuntarily and finds lacking. The sixth reason she can't forget you is that you handled conflict without collapsing and without exploding. Most men in conflict do one of two things. They collapse. They apologize for everything, whether they were wrong or not. They fold under emotional pressure. They change their stated positions in real time just to stop the discomfort. Or they explode. They raise their voice. They escalate. They turn conflict into a demonstration of dominance that has nothing to do with actually resolving anything. Both of these responses are fear responses. And she knows it, even if she can't name it. But you stayed level. You stayed in your position when your position was correct. You didn't perform calm. You were calm. Not because nothing mattered, but because you were bigger than the moment. Not because you were detached, but because you were grounded. You could hear her without being destroyed by her. You could disagree without the relationship requiring emergency surgery. That's called emotional regulation, and it is extraordinarily rare. And rare things don't get forgotten. The seventh reason is that you walked away with your dignity intact, and dignified exits are haunting in ways that dramatic exits never are. If you've ever seen a man beg, You know what it looks like from the outside. It is not moving. It is not romantic. It is deeply, viscerally uncomfortable because it represents the full dissolution of self-respect in real time. And if she witnessed that or was the recipient of it, she may have felt power in the moment, but power over a broken thing is not attractive. It is sad, and eventually it becomes repulsive. But you left differently. You didn't perform indifference. You actually moved forward. You didn't give the speech about how she'd regret it. You didn't flood her with texts at midnight. You didn't construct an elaborate story where she was the villain so you could feel justified in your anger. You just kept going with your spine intact, with your eyes still forward. You stop chasing. You stop justifying. You stop explaining yourself to someone who already made their decision. You stop. And that silence, that dignified, self-possessed silence, is louder than any argument you could have made. It does more psychological work on her memory than 500 text messages ever could, because it tells her without a single word that you were the kind of man who didn't need her to believe in him in order to believe in himself. The eighth reason, and arguably the deepest, is that you reminded her of something she had been told to stop wanting. We live in a cultural moment that is deeply confused about what men and women actually want from each other beneath the noise of everything they think they're supposed to want. Women are told to not need a man. Men are told that having standards makes them controlling. Masculine certainty is framed as aggression. Feminine softness is framed as weakness. And so both men and women walk around performing versions of themselves that are fundamentally disconnected from what would actually make them whole. And then you showed up. Not performing, not managing her opinion of you, not trying to be whatever version of a man she approved of. Just yourself, grounded, directed, clear about what you wanted, respectful without being submissive, warm without being a doormat. And something in her that had been told to be silent, something ancient and honest and tired of the performance, that thing recognized you. Not you specifically at first, but what you represented, the possibility of something real. And that recognition doesn't care about timing, about other relationships, about how many months have passed, or how many convincing arguments she gives herself. It sits there quietly, and it waits, and it will not forget what it recognized. Now let me tell you about the man who lives all 8 of these principles, not as a strategy, but as a state of being. He wakes up with a reason to move that has nothing to do with her approval. He has work that matters to him. He has standards he applies consistently, not selectively. He doesn't say yes when he means no, because he understands that dishonest agreement is a slow form of self-destruction. He listens, genuinely listens, but he doesn't abandon his own perspective to be agreeable. He feels his emotions fully, but he is not at the mercy of them. His mood is not a hostage of someone else's behavior. He is kind, but his kindness comes from abundance, not from scarcity. He is generous with his time, but his time is not something he gives away to avoid rejection. He has walked through enough of his own darkness to not be destabilized by someone else's. He has sat with silence and not run from it. He has made decisions he wasn't sure about and stood behind them anyway because he trusts himself more than he trusts applause. He doesn't need the last word. He doesn't need to be right in a conversation if he knows he was right in his character. He doesn't perform confidence. He has it quietly in the way he occupies a room and the way he doesn't leave pieces of himself behind just because someone walked away. Women don't forget this man because this man is not a role. He is a reality. And reality, in a world of performance, is the rarest and most powerful thing on earth. So here is what you need to do. Not tomorrow. Now. You stop over-explaining. You redirect your energy from the woman who left to the life you haven't fully built yet. You bring discipline to the areas you've been soft in. Your health, your finances, your direction, your emotional responses. You enforce the boundaries you've been too afraid to enforce because you thought they would push people away. You let them push the wrong people away. You stop performing strength and you start building it. You stop performing indifference and you start cultivating genuine purpose. You stop rehearsing conversations conversations with her in your head and you start having real conversations with yourself about who you are becoming. You stop waiting for her to confirm your value and you start confirming it yourself in the only place that actually matters, inside your own actions, inside your own discipline, inside your own character. That's the work, not dramatic, not quick, but permanent. Here's the truth that this entire video has been building toward. The reason she can't forget you, or the reason she will one day be unable to forget you, is not about doing the right things to her. It is about being the right thing to yourself. Every single one of the 8 psychological reasons we covered today is ultimately a byproduct of one thing: a man who has decided that he is the answer, not the answer to her loneliness, not the answer to her validation needs, the answer to his own life. A man who has looked at himself honestly, accepted both what's strong and what needs building, and decided to keep going anyway, not for an audience, not for approval, not even for love, but because that is what men of real substance do. You are that man. Not yet fully, but you are becoming him every day you choose truth over comfort. Every day you choose growth over stagnation. Every day you resist the pull to collapse into what is easy and instead walk toward what is real. She will remember you. Or someone extraordinary will recognize you, not because you played the game correctly, but because you stopped playing altogether, and that more than anything is what cannot be forgotten. If this reached something in you, if it clarified something that's been cloudy, subscribe right now. Because this is a place that does not flatter you. This is a place that tells you what you actually need to hear so that you can become who you are actually capable of being. There is more coming. More psychology, more truth, more frameworks that will make you sharper and clearer and more grounded than anything the mainstream conversation will offer you. You are not alone in this. Every man watching this is somewhere on the same road, at different points, carrying different weight, moving at different speeds. But we are all walking the same direction, forward, with clarity, with self-respect, with the kind of quiet confidence that doesn't need to announce itself because it shows up in everything you do. Please like and subscribe my YouTube channel. Welcome, stay, and keep building.